This week in nerd news seems to be dominated once again by stories of threats that really should have been prevented. Not because software vendors are now expected to be proactively secure, although that would be nice, but because we now do have tools and resources to mitigate against yet unknown threats. And this pattern has not changed in some years. So I wanted to bring light to this once again. It turns out that by filtering and paying attention to what leaves our network in the outbound direction, it has a beneficial consequence of preventing a threat from being useful to the attacker. The initial attack vector is not necessarily prevented because anybody can bring in a file with a flash drive or receive an attachment that is hidden in a zip file that the password is not known by the tool to decrypt and so forth. But what can be done is threats like that can be mitigated. And here's a collection of stories today that did not need to be stories if only we collectively applied such mitigation measures that we already have. In this first story, we have a 3CX desktop VoIP app that's very popular and gets used everywhere, including in our own team in some circumstances. But it is a good story to start with. The indicators of compromise are now well known on this particular threat, and we can now see how we were protected against this long before the threat was even known. There's this Android app that has been exploited on millions of devices. Even though the Google Play Store is not available in China, it was available in a number of third-party stores, including Samsung's, and ultimately, the only way to safely operate a smartphone today is to have it protected with an outbound security policy that's active all the time, regardless if it's on Wi-Fi, on a USB connection, or on cellular data. And here we have a chance to meet the characteristics of APT43, a North Korean group that uses cybercrime to fund its espionage operations. And again, at the end of the day, the only proven strategy against advanced persistent threats is to make the attack so frustrating and so expensive to the attacker that they just leave. And we have hackers that this week exploited WordPress plugin flaws that would give them control of millions of websites. And since this ultimately targets people like you and me as drive-bys, again, what applies here is our protection as it related to outbound access. And so none of the domains that were being redirected to were found in known good categories, and therefore, on a proactive basis, protection was enjoyed. And in our last threat story of the day is if anybody uses Western Digital Cloud Services, they reported a breach early this morning. And data sovereignty is actually a topic that should be getting a lot more attention than ever. The Western Digital Cloud Services are unavailable today as they're investigating this breach, and to prevent future incidents, cloud providers are also in need of the same egress control mechanisms as anyone else. And did you know, if you're ever looking for some nostalgic moments of the old days of Apple, or the next generation just wants to see what the Macintosh operating system used to look like decades ago, head over to infinitemac.org and you can simulate old operating systems. Take care. See you again next week. Bye for now.